Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Yappily Ever After. This is a very exciting episode because Sarah just got back from a mega trip for her upcoming wedding where she had a lot of exciting meetings. She was actually at the venue where her wedding will be in August of 2026. So this year, we're less than 12 months away, which means I personally need to start looking for my outfit, which I'm very excited to do. Not to make it about me, but Sarah has had a chance to reflect on the visits and the meetings and all the things, and she's going to be sharing a number of learnings that came up over the course of that trip that hopefully will be useful for people who are also in this similar wedding planning moment, so that we can just be sharing all the things wedding and all the tips to make it as smooth a process as possible. And then, of course, we'll finish out with our recurring segment of Love It or Leave It, where we talk about some things that we're going to put to the test from a wedding perspective and see whether we would opt in ourselves or not. So please take it away. Oh, as we always do, I'm Hannah. Who am I? I'm Hannah Rose, the founder and CEO of Plannerd.
And I'm Sarah Peterson, the head of marketing for Plannerd. Okay, we have so much to discuss. I feel like today's episode is going to be very yap centered. Okay, so I kind of compiled my 5 takeaways from my fiance and I going to our wedding is in Montana. So very destination wedding because 90% of our guest list is from either Washington or California. So it was very fun. And I feel like I was very stressed out going into this just because I didn't know what to expect. And basically this whole trip, we were only there for 3 days, but what we wanted to do was just stack meetings with all of the vendors we hadn't met in person, any decision-making things that we needed to do when it came to decor, rentals, things like that, and just explore the city so that we could get an idea of what our guests were going to experience. So my first takeaway was that seeing everything in person completely changes your priorities. So what felt essential when it came to Pinterest and that kind of stuff, when we actually got there in person, I was okay, I don't really care as much about the silk napkins versus the linen napkins, Yeah. There were things like that just kind of, I don't know, Trevor, and okay, 2 things here. That's how I felt. But Trevor was the opposite. So he became I saw the table setting and I was amazing, cool, whatever. Looks great. I trust you. And Trevor was hold on. I would like to play around with the flatware. Let's switch out this to bone and do this. And what about a napkin ring instead of a folded napkin? And I was oh. So it was kind of interesting because the priorities kind of shifted. It was I feel leading up to it, I was very I need these silk napkins or I'm going to die. Yeah. And when we actually got there, I was it all looks great. The professionals are professional. They know what they're doing. And all of her referrals were amazing. And Trevor was the opposite. Trevor was oh, now I'm involved. And I'm okay, we have big ideas.
So how much of the stuff that you saw there did he have input on along the way?
Everything. Every single thing. Well, leading up to it, not a ton. He didn't care as much just because he was who actually is going to care about the napkin color or the font of signs, things like that. And then when we actually got there, we went and met with the gal who's doing our tablescape stuff. Yeah. She's kind of one of one. The Top Rentals is her name. She's expanding rapidly. But she has really, really unique vintage stuff that she goes all over the world to find these things. And she had it all laid out. And then there was the stuff that we had picked online sitting in front of us. She's okay, this is what you put together. And you're, just from looking at stuff online. Yeah. But then when you see things in person, it translates totally differently than how it was in a photo. Yeah. So we got there and all of a sudden both of us looked at the silverware and we were I don't really love the color. We'd picked out this brass silver and I was it doesn't go with anything. And so then Trevor's but look at this bone one that I wouldn't have picked because it just looked white online. Yeah. We were playing around with stuff and I'm all of a sudden we've changed literally half of the tablescape stuff.
Okay. So I also was able to see our tablescape in person, which I do feel like maybe that's a unique thing where our wedding planner had a whole like design meeting where they set up the table with the plate, and it was like as if you were sitting at the table at the wedding exactly as it would be laid out. So now that you have this takeaway, what would you say to people who won't have the opportunity to do an in-person thing? How should they be trying to replicate or at least get that same sense? Does it mean having someone in person or sending other kinds of photos other than the stock images? Like, how could someone try to do that if they're not able to be in person?
That's a great idea. Or great question. I feel like even just iPhone photos, because like photos, and this is coming from a photographer, things translate so much differently than they do in real life in photos, and totally differently than like product shots that you see online, because those are all edited with like unbelievable lighting, so colors and things look a little bit different. So I would say ask your vendors or whoever's supplying your tablescape stuff to take like iPhone photos, like set it up, take an iPhone photo, see what works and what doesn't, because that's how we really got an idea of like, oh, that color is like much more brassy in real life, and that's going to throw off the color of things. Or like, oh, those napkins look like they were like pale yellow online, and we get there and they're like bright mustard. And so I think even just getting like a realistic view of it is super helpful.
Yeah, definitely. We did make some changes similar to what you're saying, where you see it in person, you're like, interesting. Yeah, we even went from, I think we took away the tablecloth on ours, where first we had it, and then we changed it to just be the natural wood of the table.
Yeah.
Which was like kind of a big change.
Well, and like that's another one was tablecloths. I had two different ones picked out. One was neutral, and one is pink and white, like buffalo check, which is a little obnoxious because I'm also doing like printed plates, printed everything. And so online, I was like, it's going to look chaotic. And then we got there. And so like we were leaning like neutral. I was like, let's just go neutral and whatever. Then we get there and we changed like all of the flatware and stuff to white, which is a little more boring. And I was like, now I can do my fun maximalist tablecloth. And so totally changed like kind of the whole vibe of like the reception stuff. And we ended up saving ourselves money because I picked out these really pretty like salad plates. So like if you're taking photos of like the whole reception setup, you have these really cool, like one of a kind floral china plates.
Yeah.
But she was like, yeah, so the napkins are going to hide that. And I'm like, nope, like absolutely not. That's the star of the show. So like, we got to find a napkin ring or something so that we can do them on the side, because I want that to be the star of the show. And then when it came to like, we're doing a plated dinner. And so because of that, she was like, well, you could also just use that as like a placeholder. So like for photos and everything, that's it. But when they actually get served, it's a different plate.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that saved us thousands alone, because then you don't have to have two sets of the like fancy china plates.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I would also say the ability to see it all stacked together, I think changes things a lot. Whereas when you're selecting the items, you're just seeing it as a single product. So maybe another tip for people who won't have the opportunity to see it in person, or if you do, to make sure that you're viewing it this way, is to actually set it up the way it will be, or ask someone to do that at the company if you're all getting it from the same vendor, and see them integrated together, rather than like, it's so hard to pick a fork from 50 other forks and you're like, what is it next to? Like, what?
Yeah, I think just getting real photos of like what the setup will be is huge. And what it'll be like, we're doing mix and match, so each setting is different, and there's 3 different ones, so it alternates.
Oh, cool.
Kind of funky.
I've never heard about this. This is so cool.
Yeah, we're doing like totally different. So I picked 3 different salad plates and 2 different like dinner plates. So the stack is like the salad plate on top of the dinner plate. And so they all alternate. And so seeing it in person, I was like, okay, one of the dinner plates like was not going with one of the 3 salad plates. So we were like, okay, we need a different color for that. So like, if you're gonna be, you know, a type A freak like me and want everything to be have like such a specific vision, then you definitely have to go in person, because
Yeah.
It would not have been. Had I seen it on wedding day, I would have been like, "Ooh, we really messed up on that one table setting out of 3."
Hi friends, popping in here very quickly to tell you that if you love what you're listening to, please hit subscribe, click the like button, tell the algorithm gods that you love what you're hearing so we can continue putting out more great free content for you. Okay, back to the episode.
So it was, I mean, it was hugely helpful, that part alone. So yeah, first takeaway was seeing everything in person changes priorities.
Yes, love that.
Way is relationships with vendors matter even more. When you're planning out of state, trust is like everything, because you're not there to make all of the decisions all the time. And so our biggest takeaway was that our vendor team is unbelievable. Every single person that we met with was like, took so much time and then some with us, and like had ideas and like really wanted to like put their own spin on things. And I was like, this is great, because every single person that we have booked, I'm like, now I feel like I can like relax. Everybody has their marching orders and is very passionate about like what they're doing and wants it to be just as good as you. Yeah.
That's absolutely huge. And I think it can be so easy to think that the relationship is transactional, which in some ways it is, because you're hiring them for a certain job. But I think when people do their best work, they're able to be collaborative and, inspired by stuff. And that's when you get really interesting, different, not cookie cutter elements that are incorporated in your wedding. So that's awesome that you had such a positive experience. I'm so glad.
And I think my other takeaway is like, and this could just be because I am a wedding vendor, but give your wedding vendors the freedom to like do something fun and cool that they don't get to do all the time. Like that was good for me, is like I wanted, and I think it just stems from me being a vendor, is like I know I do my best work when I'm really excited about like an idea or something, or someone lets me run with an idea. If I'm like, hey, what if we did your photos like over here, and like I have this grand idea, then I know that I'm going to execute it super well because I'm excited about it and it's not boring. And that was kind of the same with like all of our vendors. I was like, hey, if you have an idea that you think is better or you want to do, then like do it. And everybody was like, oh my God, I do. Like, here's what I want to do. I'm like, amazing, let's do it.
Was there any one vendor in particular that you think would be the most beneficial to give them that creative license?
Ooh, tablescape. For sure. Yeah. Cause if you care about the kind of like that stuff, we had 2 actually. So Trevor's would have definitely been food, because we met with the chef who's doing our food, and she had a lot of opinions. And when she started like explaining things, like I just went off of things that like I thought were good. Like I was like, oh, you have like a brown butter and sage risotto, like that's done. And she was like, well, hold on, what color are your plates? And I was like, what? And she was, color your plates. And I'm like, well, the plates that'll be on is like this really pretty like magenta. And she was like, no, then you do the saffron risotto because it'll pop. And I was like, things that I did not think about.
I would never have thought that, honestly.
No. And that one like shocked me. And I was just like, oh, like I'm going to let you do your thing. And she's, that'll go really well with the mustard sauce, because then you're going to, I'm like, hey, you want to run with this? You run with that.
Yes, I love that. One of my pet peeves on wedding food is when this is kind of a tangent, but I think it's worth saying. When the past appetizers, when you're standing and holding your drink, are impossible to eat with one hand.
Okay.
Or, like,
this is huge, because Trevor and I were fighting about this, because so we went and did like a full tasting, like 14 course tasting, and a lot of them were the appetizers. And that was my one thing. Like there was a kind of a crab cake situation, and I was like, this isn't like packed together enough to not be a mess for someone who's in a gown.
Totally. And the thing is, if you need 2 hands, then people are going to be congregating around the tables and leaving their drinks places. And then they're leaving the little skewers and leaving the napkins. And then there's all this trash everywhere that you have to pick up, and that's in your photos. So like just one bite off of the plate, you eat it. You don't need a napkin. You don't need a little stick. Like the fewer accoutrements, the better.
I agree fully. And like, that's not to say like some of the appetizers were really good, but I was like,
Yeah.
Just thinking about the fact you have to account for the fact that everyone's going to have a drink in their hand.
Yes.
You only have one hand. And even for women, I'm like, a lot of people are going to be carrying, clutches, things like that. You already have too much stuff.
Yeah.
Therefore, make it very easy. Don't make it a mess. Yeah, I fully agree. That's huge. Okay, number 3 was logistics are important and shape the guest experience.
100%.
100%. So this trip kind of gave us time to like hone in on what travel will look like for our guests. And so we wanted to be super intentional about that. So when we booked this trip, we wanted to stay at the hotel that our guests will be staying at. We had the option to stay at our venue, which is where we will be staying. But I was like, no, let's like kind of figure out like what's convenient for like everybody who's coming. So we stayed at the hotel that one of our room blocks is at. And it gave us like such a better insight on just like how everything will operate. We went downtown and did like, we scoped out all of the restaurants that are nearby. And then by the end of the trip, we literally had like an unbelievable list of like places for breakfast, places for lunch, places for dinner, like everything. So I think that was like hugely important.
That is such a smart idea. And even to have the foresight to know, like, we could have stayed on the venue and you could have like replicated your own experience. That is such a great way to know like what to recommend or little insider tips on even like restaurants to go to when you're staying or like activities to do. That's such a great idea.
And proximity wise too, that was a big one for me because there's like so much to do in Whitefish, but I was like, I want to make it super easy on people. I don't want everyone to feel like they have to like rent a car. I want everything to be walkable. And that's why we picked that hotel for the room block that we did. And so, I mean, it just made it like, it gave me peace of mind. I didn't realize that I was like stressed out about like the guest experience until we were there and I got to like experience it. And I was like, oh, everyone's going to have a great time. The end. Like,
yeah. One thing I do think that couples underestimate as a wedding guest I've seen kind of missed is the travel from the airport to the venue or airport to hotel and whether or not you're recommending, like, I realized when I booked the hotel for your wedding, there's a free shuttle that goes from the airport to the hotel. So all you have to do is just tell the, just pre-schedule the
no.
Yeah. So little tidbit, there's a free shuttle for guests and that would mean they don't have to have rental cars and you can just be like fully free during that weekend. But I mean, for us, our venue was like the airport was like an hour and a half away from the nearest hotel, like hub, which is admittedly far and probably super annoying. But at least we were able to be like, this is how it is. This is what we recommend, rather than not having the information and then they Google it and they're like, what the heck? Why is this so far? Like, front load the information so that at least you're like setting expectations with people. So
yes, I totally agree. Fourth one kind of ties into guest experience as well, but this trip really allowed us to like take a break from wedding planning, even, which is very ironic because we were quite literally there to do like 3 meetings. But just being there and being able to like have fun and enjoy things that our guests could do was like the highlight of the trip for both of us. So like the first night, once we were done with meetings, I am a huge fan of kimosabe. So I was like, I need to make a custom hat. So we had like the time of our lives, went and like got drinks, made custom hats, walked around. We got to go explore like all of the bars. We waited until Saturday so we could see like what it was like when everybody was out and stuff.
Great idea.
And like hit all of the bars and like checked them out. And like literally decided like, okay, after party bar, like it's definitely this one. And there's late night food next door that's open until 2 a.m. So we were like, oh, amazing. We don't need to do like late night bites at our wedding and, cost thousands of dollars more for like tiny little sliders that are going to get cold, because everyone who goes downtown after, which is right next to the hotel, is going to have the option of like, you can go to the bar, you can do the late night stuff, all of that. So that kind of gave us peace of mind as well, which kind of technically ties into 3 as well, but just like guest experience as a whole was really fun for like both of us, and then made us more confident that like now I'm positive, I'm like our guests will have a great time. whether we're there or not, which is huge.
Yeah, that's okay. That is such a great point about like when the couple is there versus, because I think when couples frequently think about guest experience, they're thinking about it when they can control specifically, like beginning of the event, end of the event. But in reality, guest experience is also the ease of travel from the airport to the hotel. It's getting back to the hotel after the event. It's everything in between that colors their experience. Even some of that is out of your control, but a lot of it you can help give information or just understand what they're going through. So
Yes.
I think that's a really great takeaway for people.
Well, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize how, as the couple, you're busy. Like, you're going to be in hair and makeup for half the day, but your guests are like, they have a full, afternoon of just like hanging out and walking around and stuff. So we wanted to like really figure out all of that so that we knew that everybody, because obviously it's a big ask to get everybody to go to a destination location anyways. So I'm like, and Montana for me personally is like such an important location to my life that I was like, I really want to show people how fun Montana is, because 90% of the people have never been there. And you know what? Maybe they'll be fans now, hopefully.
I'm personally so excited.
See? And that's what I want. I want everybody to be just as excited as I am and have fun. One of my best friends, we were talking about how, like, after her wedding, we had to have a full debrief because she's like, I missed all the drama. Like, what bridesmaid was flirting with what groomsman? And like, tell me things. Because obviously, like the night before, they went to bed at like 9 because they had the wedding the next day. The rest of us stayed out. So there was some like drama to debrief. And she was like, I actually feel like people at weddings end up spending more time with the other guests.
Yeah.
With the actual couple, because the couple's just so busy.
Yeah.
So I really like paid attention to that while doing all of this, which was fun.
This is actually one of my favorite parts of weddings, the post-wedding debrief.
Oh.
Especially when I guess when I'm picturing myself at your wedding, I won't know all of the people, so it'll be your debrief. But for us, like all of our friends reporting back to us as the couple on all of the like shenanigans that went down, that is great moment.
People will like hide from me just because I know that it's like you don't want to stress out the bride and groom, and that's exactly what we did with Callie's wedding. Is like we had so many things that we wanted to tell her, but we're like, we need like a week of decompression. And then we literally all went to a brewery and sat there for like 12 hours. And we were like, okay, dish on like everything start to finish, which is so fun.
This is like the other iconic debrief, which is the post-engagement debrief.
Yes.
Where you get to sit and ask, and your partner gets to tell you all of the lies they told you ahead of the proposal.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's one of my favorite parts about like both things. I love the yap, the post-wedding yap.
Yeah.
Okay, my fifth and final one is that it brought the wedding from concept to real life. So like prior to us actually going and being there in person, I felt like the whole wedding just lived in like spreadsheets, mood boards, etc. And then visiting it made it feel real and like reminded both of us why we are spending so much money and doing this in the first place.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like made it like exciting and fun. And I was like, right, it doesn't all have to be stressful. Like the whole point of this is to like celebrate us and our marriage and all of that stuff. So yeah, just like bringing it to life. Like now I feel like I can actually visualize. I'm a very visual person. So I feel like getting to be in person was huge for me. It was huge for Trevor too, but definitely more me, just from a visual standpoint, from like interacting with vendors and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited just to like see all of our vendors on wedding day. Obviously guests too, but like it made it like, I don't know, it alleviated so much stress of just like the planning stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is so easy to get caught up in the logistics of the planning, and it just becomes like a project, an exercise, a thing that you have to do on your to-do list. But then it's really important to zoom out and remember, why are we even doing this? So that's great. That's the takeaway.
My biggest takeaway. So that is my 5 takeaways of
Ta-da!
Nation venue 6 months before your actual wedding.
Nice. If anyone is on Sarah's same planning timeline, we would love to hear from you about her timeline or any, but specifically, let's say our late summer brides couples would love to hear, are you in this similar like era? How's it going? Are you stressed? Are you not stressed? Like, please let us know. We'd love to check.
I want to know all the 2026 wedding drama.
Yes.
Okay, so next up on our list of things to discuss, Reddit is really popping off with wedding planning. I would say fiascos. I was just scrolling the wedding planning realm this morning and pulled a few fun ones that we can discuss. So here's the first one. Okay. This writer says, friends started avoiding me after wedding news. I'm getting married soon and we're doing a very small wedding, around 30 people, only those who are genuinely close to us. Here's the issue. Since some of our friends found out, they've been acting really distant. I feel like people are avoiding meeting up and choosing other friends to hang out with instead. Has anyone experienced friends pulling away after an engagement/wedding news? Would you still invite someone who behaves like this or take it as a sign?
Oh, wow. I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to this. I'm curious whether the people who they're sensing are pulling away are exclusively the people in their life who did not get invited or the ones who did. I'm assuming it's the ones who did not get invited.
I would assume. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that they already know they're not invited. So you must have made it clear in some way, like,
you must have made it clear that they're doing like a tiny, tiny wedding.
Yeah.
People pulled away?
I feel like I do have a different perspective pre and post having gone through a wedding myself.
Oh, let's hear them.
So my pre-thought was definitely much more self-centered and like me focused, where if someone had a wedding and I wasn't invited to it, it was like, I'm thinking about our friendship. I'm thinking about what it means for our relationship and like going deeper than I think they likely thought. And now that I've gone through a wedding and you have to sit down and make tough decisions that aren't always a reflection of the relationship, it could be a matter of, okay, I have this much to spend and it's literally this much, this dollar amount times the number of people who are going equals whatever. And I can only swing 30 people. So that doesn't mean that you don't want to be friends with those other people. So I think post-wedding, I was much more understanding and even like encouraging people to do the micro, do the elopement, do literally whatever is going to make you happy, because that's what it's about. It's not about me as the guest. It's about them. So if I was this person, I would say maybe those people need a little more love. And if you need to put some more energy towards the people who are pulling away and you want to invest in those friendships, then you might need to be the one to put the energy out and not expect those people to be running to you after feeling like maybe they got strong-armed a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that would be my thought, but I'm curious what you think too.
Very, very similar feelings. And it's actually interesting because obviously I've now been in the wedding realm for over a decade. And so I feel like very early on, I realized that like, it's not personal. It literally comes down to like the budget. Weddings are super expensive, and that's coming from a vendor for weddings. Like weddings are very, very expensive. And I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that until they actually go to plan their own. Yeah, and then you start to realize like, oh, like each guest is like X amount of dollars. And like, do you want that to go towards like, you know, the down payment on a house? Or there's so many other factors. And when I actually started dating Trevor, I remember he had a lot of friends that were like getting married, or even like just like people he grew up with. And I remember a few of them, a lot of them were like micro weddings, but he was taking it so personally. And we kept having conversations where I was like, you cannot take someone's wedding personally, like at all. And he didn't get it. And then last night we were actually talking about this exact thing. And he was like, wow, now that I'm like actually in the planning process, there's like I just have a totally different perspective. And like, I look back at like all of the friends that didn't invite me to things, and like, I'm no longer salty that I wasn't there because now we're doing the same thing. Like, I'm like, that person's super important to you. And he's like, well, no, because they've never met you. And I'm like, exactly. Like, there's a lot of other factors. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, it's who's important to both of you. So like, maybe you grew up with someone, but they're like, the problem friend. I don't know. But they haven't met your fiance, and like, you would rather it be, a celebration between you two and the people that know you guys as a couple.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. And I don't think anybody's wedding should be taken personal, because you don't know the budget or what they're trying to stick to or like any of that.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny to me because I feel like it's just human nature to find something and then make it about yourself. Like, I hear friends all the time, I had 10 weddings this summer. It was terrible. Like, too many, like, all my vacation days are being used for weddings, which is fully legitimate. But then if you don't get invited to a wedding, it's like, they didn't invite me. Like, okay, well, what do you want?
Well, and that's the other part of wedding planning. You are not going to make everyone happy. There's hundreds of people involved in these events. Like, you're not going to make everyone happy. And so just accept that and do what makes you happy. And then you'll have a great time.
100% agree.
Okay, so on the theme of vacation days, the next one is, should I go through with a Friday wedding? She says, looking for opinions and experiences from other people who have had/gone to a Friday wedding. We can do this venue, which we love, for a Friday, or we can sacrifice the venue for our original Saturday date just to make it easier for guests. What are your experiences with a Friday wedding?
Interesting. I have heard a lot of couples changing it up on the wedding day, different days of the week. Like, our Hawaii wedding, our elopement was on a Monday. Yeah, it was in the backyard, so like, really didn't matter. I think there are a few factors that come to mind. Are the majority of your guests traveling from out of town? Because if that is the case, you're asking them to take off at least 2 days of work, Thursday and Friday, and then depending, if you have events going on into the weekend, potentially that Monday as well. So I think about that. I would think about, this might be not the first thing you think of, but personally, my energy as a human on Fridays is fatigued from the week. And so I'm not really like down to clown that much on a Friday. But if it's a Saturday, sure, I'd be, if I had a wedding, I'm down to be on the dance floor, I'm partying, whatever. But on a Friday, I might not want to like go as hard on a Friday. I don't know. Am I alone in that?
No, I see this all the time as a wedding vendor. I just feel like, and there is a lot to be said about doing, if you have a dream venue and the only way you can get it is by choosing a weekday, because that does significantly, like, the cost of doing it on a weekday cuts it into like a fraction of what it would be for a weekend. So from that standpoint, I can understand why you would do it. However, if you do it, you have to be fine with maybe not everybody coming, because it is on a weekday and you don't know how much time they can take off from work, what their work schedule looks like, because that is what you're asking, is for, people to take off work for your wedding. I also think the fatigue thing is real, because the most boring weddings that I've seen are on Fridays and Sundays.
Oh, no.
And most boring ones that I've seen are on Sundays, because 90% of the time everyone has to work the next day. And so, like, yes, they are there out of like obligation. They want to be there for the couple, but at the same time, that dance floor will be dead by 9:30.
Yeah.
Like, no one's hanging out. No one's, cutting up a rug by that late on a Sunday. And same with Friday. It's just like Friday's kind of the opposite. It's just like everyone is so drained from the week that like they pull themselves together, get there, have a blast, but then it's not the same as a Saturday wedding, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not alone in that. And I think it comes down to your priorities. If you want that like totally raging dance floor, then you might rethink the Friday thing. If you don't really care, or maybe your crowd, your crowd and your vibe isn't about that anyway, then
Yeah.
maybe that's totally fine. But
Yep.
yeah, I would.
I have another hot take.
Yes, please.
From my own experience in the wedding venue realm. There are venues, and I have a decent amount of brides who picked venues specifically because the families could stay on the property and they could do like a multi-day buyout.
Mm-hmm.
It guarantees that you can do the Saturday. So like we did that. Ours was like a 3-day buyout. So our families and us will be there from Thursday to Sunday. I would encourage anybody who wants to get away with like kind of rolling it all together into like a lower cost to do like a buyout like that where you're covering housing costs and like you're not dealing with a venue that's like, so I look at the venues in the Bay Area and a lot of them are like $30K starting for like 8 hours. Like you don't get to bring anything in until like 2 p.m. on the day of.
Yeah.
And like if that's the case, then try to find something different that does that, where you can at least include housing for some people and it gives you more time, and then you're more flexible to be able to do it over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. We did ours exact same. It was Thursday to Sunday, I think, even Thursday to Monday. Even we like went.
That's incredible.
Where we had people filtering in, and our entire football team's worth of wedding party was able to stay on the property. So it was just like that much more time with people. I mean, our wedding was on a Saturday. The bigger Carmel wedding was on a Saturday, but it meant like more time with people and then decreased cost for those people who we knew were traveling really far. So it was like a little bit of an easier ask where you're asking your guests, yes, you are flying and coming here, but flying is like your primary cost because we're covering all of your housing during that time. So.
Yeah. Love that. Okay, next one. Photography help. Is it unethical to edit my wedding photos? My mother-in-law wore an ivory dress to our wedding. In photos, it turned out just as white as mine. Is it crazy to make my photographer re-edit the gallery to make her dress darker before sending it out to guests and family? My fear is if I don't, they will order prints and she will be in a white dress eternally.
Lol, 100% yes. The only thing I would say is maybe the better thing would be pick the 5 to 10 photos that you want them to redo and then just request those rather than like the hundreds and hundreds of photos that your mother-in-law, was it mother-in-law or mom?
Mother-in-law.
Oh, of course it was. That's a bold move. If you, for those who don't know, there was a woman at our wedding who wore a lace long floor length gown that was ivory, aka white, and she also wore that to her son's wedding apparently. So if you want to get a visual on that, it's also on my TikTok, so you can go look that up. But yeah, I would just pick like the 5 to 10 photos you want them to retouch, and then if you're concerned about people framing or printing, like don't send them the link to the whole gallery, just send them the specific photos you want them to have.
Absolutely. As a photographer, this actually gets brought up a lot on like when I'm doing client calls and things. A lot of people ask, like, do you edit, bodies? I came from a very commercial background. What I will say is sometimes body editing is mandatory, and it's not because I'm trying to change what you look like, but angles are a very important thing. And so like I always tell my friends this because they'll be like, oh my God, my arm looks like enormous. I'm like, yeah, anybody's arm does. When you like press it against your body, it's going to look twice the size of when you're like standing straight on normal. And so from an editing perspective, I do edit a decent amount of wedding photos, and I have no issue changing the color of someone's dress if they pull something like that. However, it would add a cost if someone was like, hey, I want you to go through your, gallery of 2,000 photos and edit this dress in every single one. I probably wouldn't take that on just because it would double the editing time. But exactly what Hannah said, pick like 5 to 10 photos that are like the standout photos that you want to frame and edit the hell out of them, because that's ridiculous.
Just as a general question for all wedding guests, but specifically the mother of the groom or the mother of someone in the couple, why on earth would you wear white. It's literally the only thing us brides want from you. Don't wear what I'm wearing. Like, why is that hard? I seriously don't get it. Like, yeah, I'm aghast.
I don't know, but it does happen more frequently than you would think. Like, I have done at least, I would say 10 to 20 weddings where someone is in something where I'm like, that was a choice.
Seriously, that many?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
During peak season, there's at least like one or two every year where I'm like, oh, someone's in like ivory, and like they thought, and sometimes it is a mistake. Like, I've seen a really, really pale pink where like, yeah, it might have looked like that when you were like getting dressed at home. But when you're outside in like bright sun, I'm like, oh, that's like white. If you even think for a second that it's too light, don't wear it.
Yeah. I want to hear from lots of people. Did someone wear white at your wedding? Tell us. Did you accidentally wear white at someone's wedding and you feel horrible about it? Tell us. I would love to know. I want to see a photo of it. I want to know, honestly, if it was possible and it was me, I would leave the wedding, change, and then come back.
Yeah. And that's exactly what you should do.
Well, that's what you do when you have anxiety. So,
Okay, last one. This one's kind of funny. Wedding planning is a nightmare. I don't know what to do. My parents are paying for our wedding, but I was naive to think that any of this wedding planning would go well. My parents bulldozed every single idea that we had. We wanted a small, intimate micro wedding with an outdoorsy ceremony and wanted our dog to be a part of it. Every time I try to speak up about what we want, we are told that we should just be grateful for the contribution. My parents view the wedding as an event for the family, so it's important that everyone else is happy. Expensive food to impress relatives who literally haven't seen me in 14 years, ridiculously expensive ballroom venue and decor, open bar, etc. I'm sure this is other people's dream wedding, but we are a very practical couple and don't want to spend this type of money or create this type of fanfare. Everything is so out of control. I feel like I've missed enough opportunities doing everything my parents want me to. I want to make my own decisions for my life and with my spouse, and I just feel like this is a major turning point.
Oh, wow. There's so much happening here. Okay, two things. One, if anyone is listening to this and they are like in the weeds on wedding planning, I would say let this be a cautionary tale that some of the hard conversations need to happen way earlier in the process before you get to this point where you can be, really specific with people about, does financial contribution equal say in the wedding? And I think depending on how your relationship dynamics are, there's a way to do that and make it like, okay, I got this checklist and it's on the list. And so I just need to like cover my bases and talk to everyone and make it like fully procedural. Or if you feel like you have to confront someone about it, but like do this so much earlier in the process, because I feel sad for this person hearing how far down the line they've gotten.
Oh, same. And that was my initial takeaway while reading this, is I was like, okay, I think my new biggest advice to anyone starting to plan their wedding would be have conversations with both sets of parents, your fiance, etc., and figure out what your wedding budget is from like a pooled standpoint, like what people are willing to contribute. But I would be very hesitant, and like my fiance and I were talking about this. I was like, I don't want to put anybody's parent in charge of like one specific thing because I don't want them to hyperfixate on it. Therefore, I think it's way smarter if you pool all the funds, and then you guys as a couple should be able to allot what you want to each part of the wedding based on the priorities that are important to you.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it, because then it's like, thank you so much for your contribution. It is in the pot that we will be drawing from to pay, rather than being like, okay, time for your contribution to the florals. And then suddenly they have like a million opinions about florals. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my biggest one. I also think right now specifically, and I'm even seeing this with my own, not to out my own mother here, but I'm gonna, because I think there's been a massive shift in weddings in the last like 5 to 10 years, but really the last like 5 years specifically, where a lot of the trends that were popular when our parents got married are not popular anymore. So like the other day we were talking about my parents' wedding because they, equate everything to their own wedding and what they did back in, 1989. And she's like, we had 200 people. I can't believe you're doing 100 people. I'm like, okay, but from a cost perspective, a 200-person wedding back then is probably like a 50-person wedding today.
Yeah.
Just monetary value. And then on top of that, they have all these like kind of, I'm going to say outdated trends of like the garter toss, the bouquet toss, things like that are very rapidly dying. And so I feel like pretty much anyone getting married this day and age, you are up against these like traditional, if you look at any wedding from the 80s, it was very much the same. Everything was the same. Mm-hmm. And nowadays you're seeing trends of like everything is very unique to the couple, and like it could be in a funky location, or the dress code could be crazy. Like you're seeing a lot more free will and freedom in weddings as a whole right now.
Mm-hmm. I saw an article the other day about, I'm not going to say this is a trend, that's a strong word, but it was like of one of many potential like alternative things to do, which was a not mourning, but sunrise ceremony. I was like, no, please
no.
Please no.
I'm vetoing that. No.
What is that, like 4 a.m.?
Yeah. How do you get up to do your hair and makeup? Like 1 a.m?
I feel like the kind of couple that's doing that is more like roll out of bed, I woke up like this kind of couple. Like maybe it was on a mountaintop, but I'm like, if I got invited to it, it was like 5 a.m. Like, you got it.
I'm not doing it. I've had some crazy requests from like a photography perspective, because obviously sunrise and sunset are the prettiest times of the day. Mm-hmm. But usually I've never had a request for sunrise, and I think I would say no.
If you did it, let us know. Not to be a downer also, but like that's
if you did it, what was your guest retention rate?
It must have been like an elopement type concept. Yeah.
And like from an elopement perspective, if it's just the two of you and your poor photographer who has to get up at 3 a.m, I can see that. If you're just in it for like the photos and like you want it to be glowy and pretty and gorgeous, absolutely do sunrise. If you have guests, no.
Yeah. Well, I hope that person whose little submission you read, I hope they're able to get back on the same page. And I'm trying to think of how you could like mend it once it gets to that point. And I think you either need to just acknowledge that we came this far and like just suck it up and like move ahead, or you need to be ready to put a stake in the ground and make some real changes. But you kind of got to figure out how do we get here and how am I going to move ahead? Plus,
how are we going to get out of this?
I also think, weddings are such an interesting time because it just amplifies existing family dynamics or existing dynamics within other relationships. I don't think it brings out anything that wasn't already sort of there in some capacity. So maybe this person needs to reflect on what kind of relationship they have with their family generally. And this is just showing you that it might be something to work on in the context of your life outside of wedding planning. So
I think that's exactly what it is.
It did a little service for you. Just highlighted, you need to maybe work on this a little bit. Oh, okay. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for being a part of our plannered family. Also, this was like the stripe themed episode, which I love.
Oh, yes. I didn't even notice.
So thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you next time.
Woohoo!